There's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Tuesday Brews Day. Not much of a brew today, more of an analysis on the standard meta now with Oko Band and what I've seen playing 15 games today on Arena. So I think it's worthless to play over your 15 games. Did end up completing my 15, actually dropping one game with this deck. So ground all the way from gold 4, so low gold 4, to platinum, so just barely hit platinum with the constructed rating. You can see here with platinum 4 now with the, which I'm not trying to brag about. I'm just saying I don't really play Arena that often. Usually when I do, it's with wonky decks in Gold League. And this deck, just playing actual tier deck, playing Gruul, was basically undefeated through the entire Gold. The only matchup that I dropped was against Blue-Green Flash, and both of the games against Blue-Green Flash, they had 3 of the Wolf, the 4/4 Flash Wolf, which is pretty tough for Gruul to take care of 3 of them. It's okay for like 1 or 2, but the third one is the one that got me both games. Anyway, let's just take a look at the deck I've been playing, and I'll talk a little bit about what I've seen in the meta. So first of all, Fire of Invention decks are everywhere, and there's different flavors of Fire of Invention decks. I've seen it all. I've even seen a Fires of Invention deck that ran Niv Mizzet and the Hero Precinct 1. I mean, that was how wonky these Fires of Invention decks have been. A lot of them have been more on the flavor of Nicol Bolas and Thought Erasure rather than on the typical Cavalier. I've even seen an Elementals Fires of Invention that was heavy on the creatures, and I thought that one was kind of interesting, that now the Fires of Invention is being splashed in basically any deck that can run it, because apparently in this meta, turning 5 mana into 10 mana on the following turn is pretty good to chain off cards. So this deck is incredibly good against Fires decks. I think Fires decks are just too slow. Oftentimes they're 3 or 4 color, which means they're going to be playing shock lands or tap lands like Temples, and Gruul really preys on these decks. It also is pretty good versus just regular Thought Erasure control-based decks. Gruul Spellbreaker tends to be one of the better cards in this deck, because if you get Embercleave with Gruul Spellbreaker, your opponent cannot target it. It has hexproof. It feels like a Bogles type deck at that point, and that combo has won me a ton of games. Questing Beast also is very good right now in the meta because of people putting out like the Grazers to try to ramp. The Questing Beast just gets around them. There are quite a few 2-power creatures that cannot block the Questing Beast in the format. So again, this isn't really a brew. It's basically a tier deck. It's been around. It was my prediction of what would be the best deck going out of the Oko ban. I am under the impression that it is the best deck just because of how well it matches up right now against Teferi Control, how well it matches up against Thought Erasure decks, Fires of Invention decks, and it can hold its own versus like Blue-Green Flash. It can also hold its own versus other Gruul-based decks like Adventure, or Golgari-based decks, Adventure, or the mid-range. So all in all, I think it's a very, very solid deck to be playing right now, especially if you're worried about Fires of Invention deck, because that is the deck that I have not dropped a game against yet. I mean, I only have dropped a game against Simic Flash, but haven't even dropped, it hasn't been close versus those Fire Invention decks. So let's just run down the list. I think that you only want one drop. It's Pelt Collector. Now, Pelt Collector is really, really good if you hit it on turn 1. It's reasonable if you hit it later on. If it can get the 3 or more counters on it, it has Trample, which is significant with this sort of meta where you do need to push through that last bit of damage. The card that I chose to run that a lot of the Gruul players are not running is Robber the Rich. Now, I admit that this is you could easily go like Kraul Harpooner to really emphasize on Pelt Collector. You could run like a creature removal spell here, like the Shock or Lava Coil or something. In even the 4-mana spell, I think would be pretty significant. The three with Adamant for red to do 4 damage would be okay in this slot. So Robber's like the out of place card. It's the flex spot, but I really like this right now in the meta. It allows your mulligans to be much more potent, especially on the play where you had to mulligan to 6. I have come back using my opponent's cards against them, especially in mirror type decks, or it's also pretty decent versus any sort of draw-based deck where the Robber can get in there. It does everything this deck wants to do with the reach, or excuse me, the haste. So the haste and the ability to actually cast cards is very, very good. So I think it's slightly worse than Zhur-Taa Goblin, but it's playing the same role of just being a haste creature 2/2, and it does also have some great synergies with the other cards in this deck, like the Collision to Colossus and Domri's Ambush, because if you can basically spit out your hand and be under the card level of your opponents, Robber of the Rich ends up being a pretty potent threat. So I've included it. You don't have to include this one in your Gruul list. I don't think it's necessary. There are plenty of other slots. Speaking of customization, I've gone full out on Collision and Colossus and Domri's Ambush. So these are my non-creature spells that I've chosen to play. I might cut down to 3 and 3 of these because it is a bit much when you do draw a handful of both of these and not any creatures to put it on. However, Collision is very good right now against Hydroid Crasises. There are other flying creatures like Brazen Borrowers that are okay to just do 6 damage to, but Colossus is really why you're playing this card. The +4/+2 in Trample is extremely good on cards like Questing Beast with the Death Touch Trample. You can get in there for a significant amount of damage when they block or chump block with many creatures on the Questing Beast, and you give it the Trample with Death Touch, which allows all the damage except for 1 per creature to go through. That has won a lot of games, and it's also just a very strong card to put on any of these creatures. On Bonecrusher Giant, it's a great curve to get in for 8 damage. If you're attacking into a no board, basically if your opponent is going like trying to set up Fire's Invention, then a big play, that can often be the difference. And what makes this deck incredibly potent with Colossus is everything in the deck besides Bonecrusher Giant has haste. I guess Pelt Collector as well has haste, so it's easy to get in there for that last bit of damage with the Colossus in hand. Domri's Ambush is really significant as well because it can kill Planeswalkers, so you can give a creature +1/+1, kill a Planeswalker, kill a creature, and then get in there for even more damage. The +1/+1 is very significant on this card. It is sorcery speed, so I do take it out against anything that has instant speed removal, but I think it's a great main deck card. It often does come out, but it is pretty much solid versus any matchup right now in the meta. Zhur-Taa Goblin is a very underrated card. It's 2/2 with Riot. Oftentimes you would just want this to come down as a 2/2 Riot, but if Pelt Collector is already at 2, that's a good way to get Pelt Collector up to 3. Bonecrusher Giant is incredibly good in this deck as well because of the shock effect. This is removal for the early gooses and anything with Cavalcade. This is a good way to do 2 damage to that and really put you ahead. And then when you cast the 4/3, it is a very significant card. Like I said, with both Domri's Ambush and Collision and Colossus, at that point they're going to kill anything in the meta. And then I am running a 1 of Domri, Anarch of Bolas. I don't like to go up heavy in these. Our creature count's already quite low, so this creatures you can go up +1/+0 isn't as significant. It would be if I ran like another 1-drop or even higher up on the 2-drops. The fight is where you want this, though, is you want this to curve, fight, and give you some sort of benefit. It's also not bad for the +1 to cast the, if you're just like stuck on a mana for Vivien or Questing Beast, this is a way to get it out. But Domri's just not as powerful as I think it could be in a meta that is more dominated by creatures. I do side it out versus the Fires of Invention because it's just really not doing what you want to do. It's a better card with if you have a go wide strategy rather than the go big, but I think the fight does allow it to be a very good go big card as well, as you can get rid of any blocker, chump blocker, and then get in there for lethal. We talked about Spellbreaker and Questing Beast, but last but not least is definitely Vivien Arkbow Ranger. This is another one I've contemplated going up in count because when it's good, it's great, and taking this up to get to the -5 is very easy. So often this card ends up being give your creature 2 of your creatures a +1/+1 counter and then go and tutor up like a sideboard creature, or +1/+1 and then tutor up something, or fight something +1/+1, fight something else. And usually the game never lasts longer than that with Vivien Arkbow Ranger. The only thing that's tricky about it is the triple green, and that's why I've only included 1 of in the deck, because we are running a lot of other non-creature spells like the Collision to Colossus, like Domri's Ambush. We don't want our creature count to go that low that we don't have threats. And then we have Embercleave. This is a card that actually is not as good as I expected to be in the meta because I'm often just winning the games with Embercleave stuck in hand, and I would have preferred any other card. But when it is vital, it is very vital with this Trample and Double Strike. And this card synergizes extremely well with every card in your deck having haste. It also has haste itself because it flashes in and then can attach onto a creature. So it is the perfect card for a go big strategy. We don't have any like super large creatures. 4/4 is really where we curve out here, but with Collision to Colossus, it does potentially get in there for a lethal swing if you have enough creatures to flood the board and then cast it for 2 red and then Collision for just a red and a green. So that's kind of the main that I have. The thing that I like about Gruul is there aren't any dead cards versus any matchups. Your sideboard just gets you, kind of fills in the holes of the meta where you are potentially weak. And so I've included a lot of hate for the Fires of Invention decks. So Cindervines is a particular card that does very well versus control, as well as the Fires of Invention decks, because it taxes them and can get in there for that last point of damage when you do decide to target your opponent. Thrashing Brontodon is also a nice card as a 3/4 for 3 mana that can also get rid of pesky enchantments, especially Fires of Invention. And we have Kraul Harpooner for any of the decks that do have creatures, and there is a nice, or flying creatures, and there's a nice combination with Kraul Harpooner and Domri Chaosbringer, because this is a way you can actually give Kraul Harpooner haste. So if you Domri with the +1, it gives a creature Riot, and that is either haste or +1/+1. So if you do have a lot of creatures in the graveyard, and then you top deck a Kraul Harpooner and you +1 Domri, give it haste, you can potentially attack in for a ton of damage. And that scenario has already happened against a Ritual of Soot deck that just continued to board wipe me. Top deck a Kraul Harpooner, Domried it, and won, it's like a 15-2 at that point, and then attacked in for lethal. And then you can even imagine throwing on Embercleave at that point with the Kraul Harpooner. Eventually, I do want to try like a Jund Dredge type strategy or self-mill type strategy with Domri and Kraul Harpooner to see if there's something there, but we'll have to get to that in the future. That's also a nice little fling target if that's another exploration with Jund that I will have to give a go one of these days. Then we have this Skarrgan Hellkite. This is just a mirror breaker. This is a good card versus like the adventure decks and the Celestia decks. Celestia I foresee being pretty rough for this matchup because they're just going to flood the board better than what you're doing and be able to stabilize with creatures that continue to get bigger. March of Multitudes with Trostani does seem a little bit difficult for the Gruul deck. But again, the reason why I'm liking Gruul, it doesn't really have any bad matchups. It has game versus all of the decks, and with Fires of Invention becoming so prevalent, we're seeing a lot of Thought Erasure decks to try to combat the Fires of Invention and a lot of other control-based decks, and then Domri just really capitalizes on a meta that is built to be a control deck or like a over-the-top mid-range deck, because you're going to go under the radar with your creatures, you're just going to go lower to the ground while still being very, very big and push through that damage before your opponents can stabilize. One of the reasons is allowing that to happen is there aren't any great board wipes right now in the format. Ritual of Soot isn't something that can get rid of all of your threats. Sometimes you'll leave back, like a Questing Beast, if you're right on curve, and so they have to get rid of your 1/2/3 drop, but you've already pushed through a bunch of damage, and it leaves back the Questing Beast. Deafening Clarion, same thing. You can get your creatures above where Deafening Clarion can do the damage, and it's just a headache for control decks to really find the right removal spell. Time Wife's just too slow to really impact Gruul. So yeah, really liking this deck. Cindervines, very much key card versus those matchups, those control matchups, because the tax will be very real. All right, so let's just play a deck game real quick. I like to play ranked, traditional standard ranked, because I think that this deck does get better after sideboard. I don't think a lot of the decks get much better versus Gruul, and Cindervines and Kraul Harpooner, Thrashing Brontodon is siding in is doing much better. Especially taking out like Embercleaves and Collision Colossus against decks that have instant speed removal is a lot better for your deck than it is for what your opponents are doing. So now I've gone undefeated though. Let's get some terrible mulligans. I'm sure that's what Wizards or MTG Arena is going to want to do. I called it. So these hands, of course, are rough. We have no action, so we're going to ship it back. And this is a little bit better. We can just throw the Stomping Grounds in the bin as Stomping Grounds. I guess I could have just done a regular land. Yeah, that's pretty bad, actually, because Stomping Grounds could be relevant. So this is probably a loss, though. You can't draw mulligan and draw 5 lands. Blue could be... Blue-Green Flash is rough. If this is a Thought Erasure deck, we're in trouble. So Thought Erasure is going to grab our probably Gruul Spellbreaker. I would assume it's the more difficult card to deal with. Yeah. And we're just going to be at the mercy of our opponent here. They're going to throw away a Mystical Dispute that does nothing to us, and lo and behold, we draw another Stomping Grounds. So, again, this is just a variance loss. I do think it is a keep at that point with 4 lands and 2 cards. But drawing, of course, 2 lands is pretty rough. We'll go ahead and just shoot off the Bonecrusher Giant so we can cast it. Embercleave does give us some action to possibly get back into this game. It's gonna be rough though. It's gonna be a grind to get there. Narset is very weak. I think we still kill Narset though, rather than allow it to find another answer. So these decks are everywhere, and again, they are preying on the. Ooh, that's an interesting card. They're preying on the Fires of Invention because they can really rip everything out, and then it's rough for Fires of Invention to come back. So we're going to go in at Narset. I'm hoping my opponent just plays the Disinformation Campaign because that's a really terrible play, and then we can get in there for 10 damage. It'd be 11 damage with the Embercleave. Is there any other way we can reduce the Embercleave down? Yes. So the best case scenario is we draw a robber of the rich. If we draw a robber, well, of course, that's the worst case scenario is a Pelt Collector. So Questing Beast is a great rip off the top, though. So we do have action. That's the great thing about Gruul is our top deck action is very potent. Opponent's down to 14. At this point, they might run the Disinformation Campaign out. God Eternal Kefnet. I'm okay with that. Possibly my opponent is going to be blocking with the God Eternal Kefnet. We can go. Wait a second. Is this lethal? No. So we can kill and then get in there for 4 and then wait for an Embercleave, which possibly is better. Like I want to leave a land though in hand for the Disinformation Campaign to rip out. So I think what we're going to do is just attack in. This gives us better options, and then we can still cast the Embercleave if our opponent, of course, doesn't block. Perfect. So now we can just Embercleave onto the Questing Beast. It kills and still does 5 damage. Sets back where our opponent is going. We're going to keep the mountain in our hands, so in case the Disinformation Campaign comes down, we have something to pitch to it. Think that is pretty important. So Ritual Soot doesn't get my opponent out of this. They just scoop. So you can see the power of Gruul. Gruul is just crazy, crazy potent. We know that we're running God Eternal Kefnet, so I'm definitely gonna switch things up. We're gonna go a full package of Cindervines here and a full package of Kraul Harpooner. Usually at this point, what I do is I go to 2 and then 2. Actually, I'll keep the robbers in, but I go 2 on the Pelt Collector and 2 on the Zhur-Taa Goblin, because you don't want to get completely blown out by Legion or the 2-mana removal spell. The 2-mana removal spell is rough for these 2/2-drops. I do tend to like the Robber of Rich. Possibly I could cut down in like the Kraul Harpooners actually, because I got to make the decision if Embercleave is actually worthwhile. So usually what I like to do is just go down to 1 and 1 with the Collision of Colossus and the Embercleave. I don't know if Domri's Ambush is going to be as relevant. Liliana most likely will be in here. I'm trying to think of cards that I need to worry about because I want to bring in Domris. I think Domris are great. This Domri's not though. Possibly our opponent could be playing some counter magic, but I think that the bigger Domri is better here than the small Domri. And so I'm just going to go down to, yeah, let's just go 2 collisions, 2 Colossuses, and maybe 2 on the Embercleave. It tended to be pretty potent, that matchup. And everything else is good in the matchup. But this is a very typical deck of what I've been facing. This could be a Surveil deck, like heavier on the Surveil deck. Very, very potent hand. The only problem with this hand is if we don't draw land, we're going to not be able to slip through a Thought Erasure for Robber of the Rich, but at least we get the Pelt Collector online. And we don't have a lot more multiples for the Embercleave and the Collision, so there it is. Before I should shut up before I speak. There's our last Collision, as it is a 2 and 2. Or did I somehow put more in there? So worst case scenario is a Thought Erasure here. It just really, okay, Discovery. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So The thing is, my opponent did mulligan, though, so Robber the Rich is going to be slow. Liliana Dreadhorde Champion is definitely a slow card. We'll pay the life here. We'll go with the Robber the Rich, which pumps up the Pelt Collector, which we can get in there for the 2. Unfortunately, though, Robber the Rich is not giving us card advantage. And so we will be shooting off Collision of Colossus just to get underneath what our opponent is doing. Hopefully they go Disinformation. I want him to go Disinformation Campaign right there so we could actually ditch some cards. So best case scenario, of course, is just draw a land and then go Gruul Spellbreaker. Or we're definitely going to... Okay. Because we could just lose to Ritual of Soot. So I shouldn't have shocked there. I don't know if it matters. We're going to get in here with the Collision Colossus and then hopefully like get an opt off our opponent. So throw it here on the Pelt Collector. We're doing it right now so we can get underneath what our opponent has so the Robber actually triggers. We got a God Eternal Kefnet. That is going to be very, very potent if we can get there. Unfortunately, though, if our opponent does have Ritual, it's going to be tough to get that back. So Cry the Carnarium. Womp womp. Okay, so we'll just use our mana correctly with the Questing Beast. Opponent's down to a 4, meaning their Shocklands are really going to be a liability. We can Bonecrusher Giant out of here quite easily too. Dispersal's okay. At this point, we just get rid of Embercleave because Embercleave's the weak card here. And he just, our opponent actually just dies here with Questing Beast. So that is Gruul. Like, typically this is my least favorite way to play Magic the Gathering is just, I do prefer like Gruul over Celestia. Turn your card sideways deck is not a good experience in my opinion. The thing about this Gruul deck though is it does give you some opportunities to outplay your opponent. There are decisions with the pump spells, which makes it, more fun than I would say like Mono Green Stompy, for example. But it's still not a preferred way for me to play. There you have it, though. That was a very simple platinum win. If I'm pretty sure that if I decided to grind out this Gruul deck, that I could easily make Mythic. It's just a huge commitment that I play my 15 games a day on Arena, and that's that. I'm still trying to focus on Arena now, and probably gonna be selling out of MTGO if Pioneer does in a reasonable amount of time come to the Arena. So that's what I'm really trying to prepare for. Because I do like this more free-to-play platform rather than spending oogles of money on MTGO and having that chaotic market. I used to play the market on MTGO, but I gave up when they print stuff with no rhyme or reason in their what's called their treasure chests. And a lot of times they forget to take things out, and it just makes for a miserable economy when that is the biggest factor of whether a card is worth anything or not, is how bad or how horribly they mismanage it. Anyway, I don't really have enough time. I got to get some other stuff out for today, but I thought I'd show you a brew with the Gruul Aggro and why I think it's the best deck right now. Maybe we'll play some more matchups if I can get in the swing of things of streaming and whatnot. But again, I'll probably be after the holidays. Hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.